let's have the gross margin. So when we say gross margin, it is another way of looking at how the selling price of an item is affected by a certain add-on percentage. So gross margin is denoted by M sub G. For us to get the gross margin is selling price minus cost price. So again, gross margin it is a way to measure the efficiency of a company using its raw materials and labor in production processes. Okay? So again, sa gross margin, ang tinitingnan niya is the big picture, which is yung selling price. Unlike ni markup at ni markdown, naka-base sila kay cost price. Okay? Si gross margin, naka-base siya sa selling price. Because gross margin is looking for the earning of the company, yung efficiency ng company, yung financial health ng company, ang tinitingnan na perspective ni gross margin. Okay? So for us to get the rate of gross margin, so R is equal to gross margin all over the selling price times 100%. So as you can see on the rate of the margin, our base is the selling price. Unlike kay markup rate at kay markdown rate, ang base nila ay si cost price. Okay? So let's have problem number 1. Suppose an item which has an original price at 1,000 is sold at 1,250. Study how markup rate and gross margin rate are computed. Okay, so list down our given. So our 1,000 in the problem is the cost price. Okay, so the 1,250 is the selling price. So we are asked to find the markup rate and the gross margin rate. Okay, so listen our formula. So for the markup rate, so let's show the solution. Okay, so for the markup rate, so what are the formulas under markup? So we have markup is equal to selling price minus cost price. For you to get the rate of the markup all over the cost price times 100%. Okay, let's proceed to gross margin. Gross margin is equal to selling price minus cost price, the same with the markup rate. Markup rather. So rate is equal to gross margin or all over the selling price times 100%. As you can see class, ang rate ng markup naka-base kay cost price, ang rate ng gross margin is based on the selling price. Okay, now we're asked to find the rate of the markup. Okay, for us to get the rate of the markup, we have to identify first the markup. Okay, so markup is equal to selling price, which is 1,250, minus the cost price, which is 1,000. So our markup is 250 pesos. Okay, next, let's get the gross margin. So gross margin is equal to selling price minus the cost price. So it is the same with the markup. So 1,250 minus 1,000. So you will get the gross margin of 250 pesos. Okay, next, we can get now the rate of the markup. So rate of the markup is equal to markup, which is 250, all over the cost price 1,000 times 100%. So if you're going to input that on your calculator, you will get 25%. Okay, So let's proceed to gross margin. We have 250 for the gross margin. Then the selling price is 1,250 times 100%. And you will get 20%. Okay? So as you can see, class, si markup rate is 25% of the cost price. Si gross margin is 20% of the selling price. Okay? If you're going to counter-check this, class, okay, so para malaman nyo na yung rate nyo is correct, dahil nga si markup rate is based by the cost price, get the product of the cost price, and the rate, the answer should be the markup. Kay gross margin naman, dahil naka-base ang rate ni gross margin kay selling price, so get the product of the selling price and the rate of the gross margin. Dapat ang lalabas dyan ay si gross margin. Okay? So, for cost price, we have 1,000 times 25% or 0.25. Okay? If you're going to input that on your calculator, you will get 200, you will get 250. Okay, which is, ayun, si cost price. I see markup. Si markup rather. Okay, now if you're going to get the gross margin, so our selling price is 1,250 times the rate, which is 20%. Okay, so if you're going to multiply it, so dapat ang lalabas dyan is 250 as well. Okay. Okay, now, what is the difference between the two? Okay, if you're going to compare the gross margin, the markup rate and the gross margin, dahil big picture si gross margin, ang tinitingnan niya yung revenue, yung selling price mo, kumikita ba yung company mo. Si markup rate kasi nakabase lang siya kay cost. Dun sa original cost mo, magkano yung additional niya, ano yung operating cost, ano yung profit na gusto mo. Ngayon, kay gross margin, tinitingnan niya yung selling mo. Mabenta ba? Kumikita ba yung company mo? Ngayon, the idea here, class, lagi niyong tatandaan na mas mataas si markup rate kesa kay gross margin rate. Mas mataas ang rate ni markup kesa sa rate ni gross margin. Bakit? Because ang tinitignan na figure ni markup ay si cost price. Ang tinitignan na figure ni gross margin ay si selling price. Kaya kailangan laging mas malaki in terms of rate si markup kesa kay gross margin. Okay? Again, kailangan laging mas mataas ang rate ni gross margin ni markup rate, laging mas mataas ang markup rate kesa kay gross margin rate. Okay? So, it doesn't mean na kasi 25% no, si rate ng markup. Okay? It doesn't mean na mas mataas siya kay rate ng gross margin. Okay? Hindi porka 25% si markup, bigger na siya kay gross margin. No. Kasi si gross margin, ang tinitingnan niya kabuoang status ng company nyo. Si markup rate, ang tinitingnan lang ay si cost. Okay? So, ayun yung pagkakaiba ng dalawa. Okay? The higher the profit margin, the more efficient the company. Okay, note that the basis from the markup calculation is the cost. Okay? And si gross margin is the selling price. Okay, again, since kailangan laging mas mataas ang rate ni markup rate because cost figure is lower than the revenue figure, yung nasa selling price. Kaya kailangan lagi siyang mas malaki in terms of rate kaysa kay gross margin rate. Kasi si gross margin rate, after siya sa revenue, dun sa selling price mo, sa kinita ng company mo, dun sa financial health ng company mo. Okay? Let's have number 2. Jerome spent 2.4 million to construct a house. He then sold the house for 3 million. How much was gross margin and what was the gross margin rate? So list down your given. So you have 2.4 million. So 2,400,000. That is your cost price. So you are Jerome selling it by 3 million. So you're looking for the gross margin and the rate of the margin. Okay, so for our formula, gross margin rather is equal to selling price minus cost price. The rate would be gross margin all over selling price times 100%. Okay, first let's get the gross margin. So our selling price is 3 million minus 2.4. Okay, so our gross margin is 600,000. So yung tinaas niya is 600,000 from the selling price. So from the original price rather. Okay, now so for us to get the rate, get the quotient of 300,000, which is the gross margin, over the selling price, 3 million, then times 100. When you input that on your calculator, you will get 20%. Okay? So again, for you to be able to say that your rate is correct, dahil nga ang rate natin ay ang rate ng gross margin is based on the selling price. Get the product of the selling price and the rate of the gross margin. Ang lalabas dapat dyan is si gross margin. Okay? So since we have 3 million times 20% or 0.2, 0.20, okay? When you input that on your calculator or get the product, ang lalabas dyan ay 600,000. So again, the gross margin is 600,000. Okay, so ang kinita niya nung binenta niya yung bahay is 600,000. So 600,000 is 20% of the selling price. Okay. Let's have third problem. It was mentioned that Jerome spent 2.4 million to construct the house. If he wants to have a gross margin rate of 25%, how much should he sell the house? Okay, so this problem is also related on the one that we solved earlier. So first, put the given. Here, same, dahil nga connected, si 2.4 million is the cost price. But this time, he wants the gross margin rate to have 25%. And we are asked to find kung magkano ang ibebenta niya since ang gross margin target niya is 25%. Okay? The common mistake here, class, imumultiply natin yung 2.4 million dun sa 25% para makuha natin yung selling price, which is wrong. Kasi 2.4 million is the cost price. Remember, si gross margin is based kay selling price. So we cannot multiply it. Okay? So the best thing that we can do, class, is to list down the formula under the gross margin. So gross margin is equal to selling minus cost price. The rate of the gross margin is gross margin over the selling price times 100%. Okay? During the discussion of the markup and markdown, we derive the selling price. Diba? Okay, so we prove that the ratio or the rate and the rate of the markup, Diba si R is proportion kay markup over cost price. Si R is proportion kay markdown over the cost price. This time, we are going to prove that the rate of the margin, the gross margin, is proportion to the gross margin and to the selling price. Okay? So, we all know that the gross margin is selling price minus cost price. Okay, since proportion sila, we can do cross multiplication. Okay, since ang target nating makuha is si selling price, so pagsamahin natin lahat ng may selling. So we have lahat ng may S. Common factor ni rate and rate of selling price and selling price is selling, which is S. So we have R minus 1 is equal to negative cost price. Divide both sides by R minus 1 to cancel this out so that we can have S alone. Since we have negative cost price all over R minus 1, we are not allowed to have a negative cost price. So we need to multiply both numerator and denominator by negative 1. Okay? And we will get, so I will just copy here class first. So, i-multiply natin sila negative 1, both numerator and denominator. Si numerator will become positive since the denominator is binomial. I-distribute natin si negative. So, we will have negative r plus 1. Okay? So, we can rewrite the denominator as 1 minus r. So, this is our formula for the selling price under the gross margin rate. Now, we can use this one. So, we have selling price, cost price is 2,400, 2,400,000. 2,400,000. 1 minus R, which is 25% or 0.25. Okay. Input that on your calculator, you will get 3 million, okay, 200,000. So the selling price with the gross margin rate of 25% is 3,200,000. Okay, again, para lang ma-identify natin na proportion sila, class. Okay, ipakita natin. We have the rate and the gross margin over selling price. Our rate is 25%. We all know that gross margin is selling price minus the cost price. So we have 3,200,000 minus 2,400,000 all over the selling price, which is 3,200,000. Okay. So 3.2 million minus 2.2, you will get 800,000. Okay, so 800,000 over 3.2, which is yung 3,200,000. Okay, when you get the quotient of that, you will have 0.25. Then convert that into percent. So you will have 25%. So they are proportion. Okay, and another way around, I will just show you on how you're going to solve the other way around, kagaya ng ginawa natin sa markup and markdown. Okay, since our rate is equal to gross margin over selling price times 100%, our rate is 25%. We don't know what is the gross margin. Okay, and okay, tingnan nyo to, class. We don't know the gross margin yet, and si selling price nawawala din. Okay, so we cannot use the rate. Okay, yung rate ng gross margin. Kaya ang gagawin natin, we're going to substitute the formula for the gross margin. So, papasok tayo ulit dito sa derivation ng formula. Okay? So, the best way is to derive the selling price, which is selling price is equal to cost price all over 1 minus R for the gross margin. So, again, for us to determine whether our answer is correct na 3.2, all we have to do, class, is to multiply selling price and si rate, dapat ang lalabas ay si gross margin. Okay? So, we have 3,200,000 times the rate, which is 25%. Okay? When you get the product, you will have 800,000. So, ito siya, class. Okay? So, next. Jane was requested by his manager to calculate the selling price of an item that costs 600,000 to produce if their company will apply a 20% markup rate or a 20% gross margin rate. Okay? So, si Jane ay napag-utusan ng kanyang manager. So, list down natin yung given. So, 600,000 is the cost price. Okay? So, we're looking for the selling price given that the rate of the markup is equal to 20% and given also the rate of the gross margin which is 20% as well. Okay, so list down natin lahat ng formula na related kay markup at kay margin. Gross margin, so markup is equal to S minus cost price. Okay, selling price is equal to cost price times 1 plus R. Rate of the markup, nililisten ko lang lahat, class, no, para makita nyo kung ano yung kailangan natin. Okay, for the gross margin, we have gross margin is equal to selling price minus cost price. Then, selling price under gross margin is cost price all over 1 minus R. And rate is equal to gross margin over selling price times 100%. So, since ang kailangan nating makuha is selling price, ang gagamitin natin yung pangalawang formula. Okay? So, let's answer. So, we have selling price. Since we have the rate and the cost price. Selling price is equal to cost price, which is 600,000 times 1 plus R, which is 20%. Okay? So, we will get a selling price amount by 720,000. That is the selling price under the markup rate of 20%. Kay gross margin naman, we have the selling price is equal to cost price, which is 600,000 all over 1 minus R, which is 20% as well. If you're going to input that on your calculator, we will get the amount of 750,000. Okay, so the selling price under the gross margin rate of 20% is 750,000. Okay, so kung kayo ang manager ni Jane, what are you going to choose? A 20% markup rate or 20% gross margin rate? Okay, again, si 20% markup rate is just based on the cost price. Gross margin rate is based on the selling price. Okay? So, saan kaya ang inyong pipiliin? So, saan kaya mas malaki ang kikitain nyo? Sa selling price ng markup rate or sa selling price ng gross margin rate?